Hey, I'm John Grant, and welcome to Season 2 of The Johnny Grant Show. On today's episode, I had a chance to talk to UFC middleweight and former national champion Alabama linebacker Eryk Anders. Roll it. How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to The Johnny Grant Show. Today, I'm joined with UFC middleweight, former Alabama national champion linebacker Eryk "ya boy" Anders. Eryk, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing awesome. And yourself?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for coming on. It's really an honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anytime, brother.
So you're coming off a really big win off UFC after UFC 310 over Chris Weidman, who just announced his retirement. So how's that a big knockout got you feeling?
Um, the last one is always the biggest one. Even if it wasn't, a former champion or whatever. So it always feels good to get a win and and get a finish at that. So yeah, it kind of makes it cool that it was a former champion and all that. But Chris is represented the sport well, and he's I think. He's a really good champion, a really good fighter. I think the only guy to ever knock out Anderson Silva. So,
Mhm.
it was an honor to share a cage with him. And, he's always been kind to me in the past and, even ever since. So, um, yeah, Chris is the man.
Yeah, definitely. It's awesome to be a guy of that caliber's last fight in the UFC. I mean, that's definitely a huge win, and you're on a two-fight win streak now, so you're definitely getting real close to that middleweight ranking. So, do you have any fights in mind that you would want to take next to get into that
Um,
top
you
15?
know, I don't really, it don't matter to me. I'm only going to fight two more times and retire. So, I'm not really looking to fight any up and comers or, you know, top 15 or anything like that, just entertaining fights,
Mhm.
you know, um, fights that, the fans would like to see and tune in and watch and, that kind of thing. So I really don't care who it is, to be honest, but, you know, um, fun fights.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fun matchups they can give to you. Me and my friends were watching that fight on the car and got so excited during that fight. So just to switch the kind of topic, because you've done a lot more than other athletes have done. I mean, not a lot of guys go from football at the top level in college to being a fighter. I mean, being a national champion at Alabama, what was that whole experience like?
It was cool. And what made it even better is, I was there for the whole transition period too. I was there with Shula, who was there before Saban. Then, we went like 7-6 or 6-6 or something like that with Saban. Then the next year we went to the SEC championship and got smashed by Florida. Then, uh, then Utah. Then the next year, we went undefeated. And, from a personal standpoint, it was even cooler because, I got to be there for that whole transition. And then my last game of my last year of college, we got to play Texas. And I grew up like 90 miles from Texas, and they didn't even give me a look. And then I was able to make the game winning sack, if you will, against them in my last game. So it was almost like a storybook ending for me.
That's got to be an awesome feeling getting that sack versus the team that you definitely wanted to go to when you were younger, and then being able to put them away like that.
Yeah, sure, it was great. Couldn't have scripted it any better myself.
So I mean, so you were there with Shula and you were there with Saban, and I mean, a lot of people will go back and forth debating between who's the best coach of all time, Saban or Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's actually now in college. We'll see how he does with Carolina. Who do you think is the greatest coach of all time?
Um, I think you have to put them in categories.
Mm,
Saban is by far and away, not even close, no questions asked, the best college football coach of all time. Belichick um, is obviously one of the greats. He has several rings, but I think you know if you wanted to like say Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So is it Belichick or is it Brady? And
mm.
the Patriots were haven't been very good since Brady left. So who was it? At first I was always like Brady had Belichick, but I think when you go back and look at how things played out, I think it's Belichick that had Brady, you know?
Mhm. And the other thing is Saban and Alabama, they're getting new guys every year. So they're not, it's not with like the NFL where they got these guys on long contracts. You have to
Yeah, sure,
retool and rebuild every year.
But we'll see how DeBoer does. I think that I think people expected too much out of a coach in his first year. He still had 10 wins, was on the cusp of going to the playoffs, but I just think that they lack consistency. You go from being the number one team in the nation to losing to an unranked Vanderbilt. So that's a consistency thing. So I think that's something that they'll have to focus on in the future and um, fix.
So you were a, so obviously Alabama is one of the biggest college football schools that you can really think of. Coming out of that school, what led you? Did you always know that you wanted to be a fighter, or did that just come to be?
No, I wanted to, of course, like everybody else who plays college football, I wanted to play in the NFL for 100 years and then retire with millions of dollars in my pocket. But that didn't work out, and I was just doing the 9 to 5 thing, and just still wanted to be an athlete. So I went to a jujitsu gym because I wrestled a little bit in high school, and jujitsu is pretty similar to wrestling. So. Um, I started training jujitsu, saw some guys sparring, and I was like, yo, I could do that. And one thing led to another, and I've been fighting for like the last 13, 14 years now.
Yeah, it's crazy how that just works out. I mean, if you never went to that jiu-jitsu gym that one time, who knows where you would have been now.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know where I'd be, but yeah, jujitsu is great. Glad I found MMA. I thoroughly enjoy MMA more than I ever did football, I think. So I'm really glad that kind of the things happen the way they happen.
Yeah, I've talked to one other guy that's done football and fighting, but he hasn't he's in the XFL and he does game bred. You are have time in the college and in the UFC, so it's really big time. And what from football have you brought into the fight game?
I think work ethic, I think like discipline is like a character thing, like who you are as a person at your core. So I've always had that, but being able to work, show up on time, put my work in, train appropriately, and um, not really make any excuses or things like that. I think are big things that you learn when you play team sports and things like that.
So a football win is obviously a great feeling. I'm a football player. I mean, took out high school. I'm gonna go play D3 football after this. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And I mean, I've never really had an experience in fighting, and I know that a football win is an amazing feeling. But compared to a knocking somebody out and getting a win in the UFC, what feeling for you do you think is better?
They're different. They have similarities. When you win in football, you win as a team.
Mhm.
So it's cool. The locker room goes crazy. Everybody's happy. Doing all that. But when you win, that's your work that you put in. You know what I mean? It's not like Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley rushes for 200 yards, and however many touchdowns he had last night or whatever. Um, but MMA, it is a team sport as well because I need to train with I need training partners. I can't get better without training partners. I can't prepare correctly without training partners. But the difference is when it's game time. It's just me out there, so I don't have anybody to blame for a win or for a loss, and I have everybody to thank for a win. So for me, I never really liked team sports because of that. I didn't want to worry about like if you look at the Ravens last night, interceptions, fumbles, incomplete passes, I never wanted to depend on anybody for a win or a loss. So, for me, MMA wins are, better because you got in there one other person, mano a mano, and duked it out, and the winner came out on the other side.
Out of all of your UFC wins, you've been in the UFC for a while now. Which win sticks the most out in your head? Which one is your favorite one?
Um, Wadman was the former champion, and he was also my last fight. So, at the moment, it's got to be him.
For my last question, I just want to finish this interview off with, so in 2 weeks we have the big UFC Saudi Arabia card with Adesanya and Imavov, two big middleweights, and Shar Magomedov and Michael Venom Page. Do you have any predictions for those fights and who do you think will win?
Um, I think Armabov has come a long way since he first got in the UFC. I was there when he fought Brendan Allen in Paris, and man, he just looks sharp everywhere. He can do everything. He can wrestle. He's got good cardio. He can strike. So we'll see which Adesanya shows up. I think he struggles with pressure fighters, so I think Armabov needs to be in his face and make it dirty and grimy. Um, as far as the other two, I think Michael Venom Page is a little bit old for his style. He relies like a lot on speed and reaction, and when you get, I think he's like 38 or something
Mhm.
like that, 36, 38, and I think when you react, depending on speed, athleticism, and things like that, it makes it a little bit difficult. But I think it'll be a strikers, people who like strikers, it's like a dream matchup because you have two dynamic strikers who throw, crazy and unorthodox strikes. So I don't know who's gonna win. I think that neither one of them are really looking to wrestle. So,
Mhm. Definitely.
but the Bullet is much younger and um, I think can kind of push that pace. And he can box, he can kickbox, he can do the karate stuff, he can spin, he can do all the stuff. So I think that's another fight that maybe he should have in close quarters.
Mhm. Yeah, probably just come down to who's the faster guy. It's definitely going to be on the feet. No way that goes to the ground.
I mean, it might, you're out there trying to get a win, but
That's
obviously the
true.
grappling has to be on the Bullet. It has to be on his side.
All right, Eric, thank you so much for coming on for this interview today. It really means a lot. It was a
My
great time.
pleasure, brother.